100% Cairns and the tropical north. Good morning. It's 846 4CA. Well, today is International Women's Day and it's also our Wellness Tuesday. So I tell you what, a very apt guest this morning, the second only female orthopaedic surgeon qualified here in Queensland and the first female orthopaedic surgeon in Cairns. My special guest this morning, Dr. Sarah Coll. Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm fantastic today, Murray. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you in. And we've got quite a few interesting things that we can talk about this morning. But look, I do want to talk to you about a few topical things. So look, let's get stuck into it. But look, can we start with melioidosis? There's been a lot of talk about that. And look, you know, I have heard that some rumours that particularly on the south side with some of the construction, even some of the road construction, that may have disturbed some of the soils and actually maybe the reason why we're getting a little bit more of these cases coming up in the region. We don't know for sure, but, you know, could there be something behind this?
Look, I think we just all need to be very careful when the water is muddy and we can't see what's in it. I think people need to wear shoes. And I think people get a bit hot and stinky in their shoes. They get a bit ruined. They get moist and people don't want to wear them. But once that soil has really aerated, so once the air has got through the soil and turned it over, then the melioidosis is available to infect us. And any cuts or scratches, any breaks in the skin, blisters, that's how it gets in. And so we just need to look after our feet at this time of year.
And look, you know, it's a bit of I guess, a signature of tropical North Queensland. And I remember a friend of mine when he first came to North Queensland, he couldn't believe a lot of the old farmers, they used to get around in bare feet all the time so they could feel the soil, they could feel the grasses and any weeds that come in. But of course, it's a recipe for disaster by the sound of things.
Look, I think some of these conditions really weren't recognised and identified 20, 30 years ago. And our ability to treat them is so much better. So these people, they come in super sick. You know, by the time they actually recognise that they're unwell, they are very, very sick. And we now have the technology to help them, which is wonderful. But I think the most important thing is prevention. And if we can keep ourselves out of the public hospital system by looking after our feet, I think that's what we need to do for our community.
Okay, let's talk about something else that's been making news in recent times was also measles. And I guess that's reflecting a bit of reluctance and, you know, with flu season just around the corner. I take mine every year. I make sure I get my flu vaccine. But, you know, there is still this reluctance that seems to be becoming more and more widespread despite, you know, decades and decades of solid data that vaccines basically, you know, have saved so many lives. But there's still this reluctance in society.
Well, I think measles is just a really important example of the value of vaccines. Measles is extremely contagious. One person can infect 15 others.
Wow.
The virus can linger in the air for 2 hours after they leave a room. Yeah. And we need 95% vaccine coverage. So that means 95% of the population need to be vaccinated in order to prevent it from spreading because it is just so brutally vicious. This is not like COVID. Measles is a much more powerful virus and is much more infectious.
Yeah.
The problem we also have is that it's not harmless. There's the impression that a little bit of measles is not a bad thing and the child can develop their own immunity, and there's some sort of thought that maybe that immunity is somehow better. The body doesn't know the difference between the virus and the vaccine. The body still fights it with using the same tools. But the problem with measles infection is the risk of pneumonia. But the one that really upsets me is the risk of encephalitis. And that's a word that's used a lot, but what that really means is brain inflammation. So these children have permanent brain injury, which can affect their processing, their cognitive processing, their ability to understand instructions, their ability to focus, and all those complicated things that we just take for granted. 1 in 1,000 infected children will die even in high-income countries like our own. So in our wonderful healthcare system, 1 in 1,000 infected measles infected children, 1 in 1,000 measles infected children will die.
Gee.
So measles is a terrible condition. It's a horrible disease. It's a horrible virus. But we just don't see it like we used to, and we've become very complacent. And look, that's a wonderful thing that we've become complacent, because it means that the vaccine profiles that we've been developing, the vaccines that we've developed have been fantastic.
Sure.
They have just changed healthcare. They have changed they have changed childhood life expectancy. It's extraordinary, the effect of vaccines. Vaccines have prevented tens of millions of deaths globally. Two doses of the measles vaccine gives you 97% protection against measles. The vaccines go through huge clinical trials and continue to have post-marketing surveillance. So the TGA continues to check for any side effects or any problems with these vaccines. So they're constantly monitored, just the same as everything we do in medicine. We are constantly regulated and monitored and checked, and our results are constantly scrutinised to make sure that we're maintaining the standard.
And it's interesting because, you do hear about incidents where maybe 1 in 10,000 people have a side effect or some form of complication. The focus is on that, and the focus is not on the number of lives that have been saved as a result of the vaccines. And for some reason in society these days, through social media, you get these conspiracies and misunderstandings because, sure, unfortunately there's always going to be a percentage where there's issues or it doesn't work. There's the focus on that, not the number of people that have been saved, as you've just said to us.
Yeah, look, I agree, Murray, and that is why people need to discuss their concerns with someone who's got that professional experience. I mean, you talked before about me being the second female orthopaedic surgeon in Queensland. So that involved 6 years of medical school, which, I can be frank, that was a little challenging. Sure. That was pretty hard. Yeah. I had to study pretty hard for that. And then another 8 years of, preparation to be trained as an orthopaedic surgeon, and then 4 years of actually being formally trained as an orthopaedic surgeon. So this is a long process. By the time that I had graduated 20 years ago, which seems like yesterday, the knowledge base that I was required by my organisation to have acquired is extensive.
Sure.
And so the advice that I offer is based on huge volumes of data and information that I've had to process. So I agree, the 1 in 10,000 is absolutely tragic. There is absolutely no condolence for the people that are affected by that. I totally can see that. But when you're looking at conspiracy theories arise during times of peak anxiety. So people feel very anxious and feel alone. And a conspiracy theory is very comforting. And at the time that people discover a conspiracy theory, when they are very stressed and anxious, the conspiracy theory feels very comforting. And so the conspiracy theory then has a series of people that are involved in the theory, and the person who is feeling anxious is then incorporated into a group of people that then give them comfort.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we are respectful of people who are involved in conspiracy theories, and we're respectful of people who have been drawn into these ideas, because it's very challenging being in that situation. And these people are very vulnerable and very anxious, and they are very volatile, and they will defend their thinking in the face of facts that contradict them.
Yeah, sure. And you see that time and time again. That might be a good point to actually just lead into one quick thing that I'd like to talk to you about. You're not a dentist, but I grew up with somebody who was a very highly qualified dentist. And, we've got the ability to actually get the right dosage out there to the public. I'm sure from your perspective, working in the medical field, when it comes to the politicisation of fluoride as well, that's something that I'm sure that deeply concerns you as well.
Look, speaking to the politicisation of the decision, 98 to 99% of Australians benefit from fluoride. And unfortunately in Queensland, it's only 75%.
Yep.
So we are about to see a storm of dental issues. We haven't had fluoride in the water in Cairns for over 10 years. And so they've recently produced a study which showed that our children are 25% more likely to have a filling. So we can already demonstrate the science behind the benefit of fluoridation. So we can already see that our children are having more fillings. Those fillings cost money, and the parents of those children are having to fork out for the sake of a political decision.
That's sad. It really is that we're in this modern age, with the technology and knowledge that we have in science, in medical science, so many areas that's the way we are. A bit of hard work this morning, but great to talk to you for International Women's Day, and of course for our Wellness Tuesday as well. Dr. Sarah Coll, have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for dropping in this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, Murray. Always a pleasure to see you.
This